Thank you so very much, Greta, for doing this session. Really appreciate it. Now, am I right in saying that you recently started doing obstacle course race, and in a relatively short period of time, you've turned out to be an elite racer, isn't it?
Well, actually, I started obstacle course racing just about less than 2 years ago.
Oh, okay.
When I started obstacle course racing, before I started OCR, I was always into running and into gym. I'm
Uh-huh.
also a fitness trainer, so fitness is part of my life. But I remember at that time I used to attend boxing classes.
Oh,
And I told my boxing coach, I want to start doing OCR. I'm like, I've seen these videos. I'm fascinated. I don't know how to do any obstacles, but I want to do it. And the boxing trainer was a very close friend of my coach, George Crewe. He introduced me to George. I started training with George, and from day one, he became my coach. So George took me because I knew how to do no obstacles at all. I was fit, I had the running background, but obstacles, I could do nothing. So basically, he built me and he taught me everything from scratch. And then it's incredible because I remember telling him a few months after. So I started with a 5K race in Abu Dhabi. Then my second race ever, my second sporting race ever was ah, um, um, the World Championships, which was 21K all on soft sand in large dunes. And then
uh,
from there, I told my coach, I want to eventually one day, I want to do a 50-kilometer OCR race. And he's like, we'll do it. And after I had done about, I think, 10 OCR races, because I thought it takes about 4 to 5 years to build up to an ultra. And after I had done about 4 or 5 races, about 10 races, he told me it's time. I told him, for what? He's like, we're going to do an ultra. I'm like, no. I'm like, I've already done 10 races. He's like, no, you're ready. He's like, if there's someone who can do it, it's you. Because he had built in me so much physical and mental resilience. So then what happened is I signed up for my ultra OCR, which I knew was going to be tough because it was going to be 4,000-meter elevation, 60 obstacles, 50 or more kilometers, because that's always open to what the organizers decide. Um, and then, as build up to that, he actually gave me, I started enrolling for 50-kilometer races without obstacles, just
okay.
to get used to running the distance. And in these 50Ks, he told me, even if you're feeling strong, you have to stop at the checkpoints and refuel, eat, hydrate. He's like, because in the ultra OCR, that's what you're going to do. So basically, I learned, even though I was feeling strong, I wanted to continue running. I stopped, I refueled. Yeah, so it was a gradual build up. So to train for the ultra OCR, he started training me 6 months in advance for these big races. But
Mhm.
yeah, considering that I knew how to do no obstacles, to doing an ultra OCR, 55K, 4,000-meter elevation. My biggest achievement being placing third elite in Salalah in an
Yeah.
OCR race I did in Salalah in September. So when I look back, even when I train with my coach, it's like you've come such a long way. I used to be scared of heights, of depths. I couldn't go across monkey bars. I couldn't climb up a rope. I was scared of going over a wall. And now I just look forward to bigger challenges. So it's amazing. Yeah. So
Yeah.
I think I found my sport now because I loved running and now I found the obstacles. So it's an amazing combination.
What is really impressive is that in just a span of 3 years, you've also managed to get onto this podium. I know quite a lot of people who've been doing obstacle course race for well over 3 to 5 years, and they still haven't even gone close to being on the podium. And you mentioned about, you were struggling with monkey bar. I do remember watching an Instagram video of yours, I think it was in Corfacon, where after doing the monkey bar, you were so excited and happy that you smashed it.
I think that was the rings, yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
possibly the
the
rings.
multi-rig, yeah.
I couldn't even go across two rings when I met George. But I think something so amazing about my coach, he was so patient and he built me step by step. So it wasn't like, okay, he told me, I told him, George, I take long to learn, but once I learn something, I will keep on improving, you
That
know?
is absolutely great. Yeah.
So he took me, as I said, from being able to do no obstacles to now loving the obstacles, and flying across them. Obviously, there are still some obstacles that are more challenging than others.
Yeah,
And you will see, even when I did my ultra OCR, there were obstacles that even the elite of the elite were failing because they were tough. And when you're out there racing for over 10 hours, your body, you know, is fatigued. So it's the mental resilience that carries you through as well. But yeah, it's a big satisfaction because now I look back at my videos and I'm like, even George, he films me and he's like, do you remember when you could barely go across one monkey bar, one ring, one nunchuck, and now you're just doing it so comfortably? I'm like, it's all thanks to my coach. And
that is
thanks to my, and the hard work, the resilience, the commitment
absolutely.
of training, even when your body's tired, even when you don't feel like it, you just wake up and get it done. Yeah.
That is absolutely great. We'll definitely get into all those things. Now, Greta, before we get into fitness, your experience in obstacle course race, and you've also done hybrid events and also quite a lot of ultra runnings. I'm also curious to find out if running or fitness is a full-time job or is it just passion. So for our listeners, can you tell a bit about yourself as to where you originally from and when and why did you move to Dubai?
Sure. So I'm originally from Malta. Malta's my hometown. Um, I moved to Dubai around 6 years ago. It was November 2017. I moved because of my husband's job at Emirates. So obviously, I spent a few years long distance, and then I decided it was the best step to move to Dubai. I love Dubai. I settled in straight away. Um, but the only issue was I knew it was going to be very hot weather. So when I moved to Dubai, for some reason, I took a step back from my like competitive running because I was very competitive in Malta and running. And I started just going to I just preferred keeping fit by going to the gym and doing fitness. In the meantime, I also studied to become a fitness trainer. I qualified as a fitness trainer. And my job in Malta was that I used to teach in a secondary school. I was a
Okay.
teacher of English and Italian for 13 years.
Ah,
But I said, when I moved to Dubai, I want to transition to fitness. So I started studying. I qualified and I started working in fitness when I came to Dubai, um, which wasn't easy because the fitness industry is very competitive here. But yeah, basically, so I transitioned from Malta to Dubai, from being a full-time teacher in a secondary school to now being a personal trainer and a group exercise instructor. I was always into running. I think I started running when in my final year at university, when you should be
okay.
focusing on your thesis and everything else. I wanted to focus on my running. Um, but obstacles were new. So I was always into running from when I was about 24 years old, I think, into fitness, into gym from when I was 16. But then I needed something new. So when I moved to Dubai and I said, now it's time to transition into something new, not only job wise, my career, but also in the world of sports. The good thing for me was that in Malta, my country, because it's Mediterranean climate, I am used to hot weather. Not as hot as Dubai, but at least it was a bit easier for my body to adapt to training in hot conditions because
Hmm.
I still train outside even in summer. Um, but yeah, so I'm happy. I transitioned well. I love Dubai. I love the lifestyle. I love my job. I love the sports community in Dubai. It's very big. There's a strong fitness community here, strong sports community. So
Yeah.
it was so easy even to transition again into the competitive mode, so to
Yeah.
speak. So
And
yeah,
right now, we also had the Dubai Fitness Challenge last month, which
yes.
was an absolutely massive success as well, right? But what I wanted to ask is, the experience of being a teacher, does that kind of help you when you're doing group instructor or group exercise instructor as well?
So much. So first of all, since I used to teach, when I was a teacher, I used to have maybe 28 or 30 kids in a class. I'm used to facing big crowds. I'm used to facing groups. Also, I think an important quality is with being a coach or a teacher, being very patient.
Mhm.
You're going to have people of all levels, people of different abilities. You have to go down to their level. You have to realize that you have to cater for different abilities. So you have to make the class challenging for the ones who are more advanced, but doable for the ones who maybe are beginners. And for the intermediate, there's also the other option as well. So I think I was so used to facing groups and going down to their level and adapting to different abilities of the kids that when I had to transition that skill to teaching group classes, it came easily, it came naturally. Even the fact that you are continually explaining.
Hmm.
So even sometimes you demo an exercise and the client start, and there's always someone who will do it wrong or who needs help. So you go up to them, you explain. I think the important thing is also, which is something that I also see in my own coach, that when you correct clients, you have to do it in a constructive way. So you have to show them that you're helping them for their own good, to help them have better form, better technique, to avoid getting injured. And you're also being constructive. Like, I've seen that you've really improved your mobility today, or you have a better range of motion, but let's try and improve that even better. And you tell, or yeah, that's amazing. You're hinging more from the hips for the deadlift, but we just need to improve, the way you're keeping your core engaged. So I think being constructive is important, because if you're going to be a coach, just like, look at that bad form. Why are you doing that? That will not work. It's the
Correct.
same when I'm facing kids. If I'm going to tell the kid, why are you chatting? Now you're not going to do well in your test, whatever, whatever. So you have to be patient, go down to the level, adapt to different abilities, and just be constructive. That's what my coach does with me. He's
Yep.
always constructive. Okay, so I do something like, good, but you did that well, but I think we can do this a bit better. And then you always, when it's done constructively, you are willing to improve, you are willing to try harder. But if my coach were like, look at that horrible form, horrible technique, or whatever, then that's demotivating.
That is definitely great, and it's good to know that you have a competitive advantage in one set of skills, where other people they have to learn that thing, and it becomes a bit
Yeah.
difficult. So great. Now, Greta, let's travel back in time and take us to the very first obstacle course race event that you did. Now, you did mention earlier that the first one, I believe, was at the golf club, right?
Yes, that was, I think, Abu Dhabi, October 2021.
Okay.
I had already been with George for a few months, so um, I had practiced obstacles, but I was still a bit sort of new to obstacles. The running wasn't a problem. I love, especially because, all these OCR races many times are on uneven terrain, trails. However, I did miss a few obstacles. I failed a few obstacles. And I remember there was my coach. He had finished the elite race and he was there to watch me. And he's
Mhm.
like, it's okay. He's like, just do your penalty and keep going. He's like, it's okay. It's your first race. You will learn. So it was amazing, because when you're actually there doing a race, you're like, wow, this is not just training. Now I'm actually in the race. And I gave my all. Yes, I faced some obstacles, I won't lie. I did the penalty, I moved on. And then I went to check my results and I'm like, I'm sure I don't have podium. And they told me you're second in age group. I'm like, what? I'm like, and I was so happy, because you know what? I think something my coach also taught me is like, sometimes a race will turn out as you planned. Sometimes you'll have, maybe you won't have such a good race,
Yeah.
you'll have a bad race, or maybe things, and there'll be races which turn out, maybe some turn out as you planned, some don't turn out exactly as you planned, some turn out 50-50, so to speak.
Yeah.
It's like you just have to keep going. Because I have seen people stopping in the middle of a race because they realized they weren't going to achieve the result they wanted. But for me, that is not being a warrior. You just have to keep going,
Correct. Yeah.
you know?
Especially the event that you attended for the very first time, if I'm not mistaken, that was the first event after COVID era as well, right?
I think possibly
Yeah,
it might
because it was
have been. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
ridiculously
yeah.
hot. It was extremely, extremely hot. I remember attending that
It
session.
was, it was hot, yeah.
And
Yeah. But it was nice. And I think it was the right distance to start with. It was a 5K or just over 5K. And then I remember my coach telling me, now we're going to try a longer distance. We're going to try a 21K OCR race. I'm like, George, I've just done a 5K. I'm not ready for 21K on sand and obstacles. He's like, yeah. It's like, if there's someone, and then he told me, if there's someone who can do it, you can. He's like, we're not doing it this. I just wanted to complete it and challenge yourself. If you complete this, you can do anything. And when I was struggling in the race, when I was dehydrated or
mhm,
struggling, I was like, okay, my coach showed me I can do it. I'm going to do it. And I could hear his voice. In many races, I actually hear my coach speaking to me, telling me, you can do this, you can do this. And it helps so much. because he's
That is
not physically next to me, but I can feel his energy. Yeah.
yeah, and you know, for our listeners, international audience, should know that the coach that she's talking about is George Crewe. And I'm not sure, Greta, if you know that the name of this podcast called The Race Space was also done by George Crewe and his missus. They were the one who actually came up with
Yes,
the
they did tell
podcast.
me. They did. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, he's a really, really professional coach. He's an extremely, extremely professional person as well. And it's great that, you know, we have him in Dubai. Now, my next question is also regarding coaching experience because look, you're part of the most badass training facility that is Spirit Level. So you mentioned, you know, yeah, and you have the headband as well. So
My
how
God.
has that journey been?
So basically, when I had met my coach, at
Mhm.
that time he was training with another gym, but it was always his dream to have his own business.
Yeah.
And a few months after, he sent me a message to tell me that now he had founded Spirit Level together with Danielle, who is now his wife. And they were going to focus on, at the time, we were focusing on obstacle course racing, but then eventually they transitioned into hybrid training and high rocks, which they are excelling in and which they're doing amazing at. But at that time, I remember he told me, "What will you do?" I'm like, "You are my coach. I will follow you. Well,
Mhm.
you know, even if I had to travel to the other side of the world, you will always be my coach, even if you coach me online." So I follow them. We obviously changed the gym where we train. I kept on training with him. He kept on helping me improve in my obstacles, in my running, because he's also my running coach. So I'm so lucky because he literally trains me for everything: running, obstacles, strength, hybrid. And then eventually, because high rocks and hybrid events became so popular, they became a hybrid group. George and Danielle started traveling, doing high rocks abroad, doing lots of high rocks. Eventually, when they started in the Middle East, they were doing well, they were excelling, they got the experience. And then Spirit Level started focusing more on high rocks and hybrid. And because they had the experience, they have so much knowledge to pass on. You know, it's amazing. And George himself has another coach. So George, although he's a coach himself, has
Yeah.
another coach for strength.
Okay.
So although George is an amazing coach, he wants to continue learning. So he's always learning and studying and learning from other coaches. And sometimes they do seminars for us, like workshops to prepare for high rocks. Danielle, his wife, is also a sports nutritionist. So she helps us even regarding the nutrition, how to prepare for races, the nutrition and all that. So it's amazing that they're not just offering amazing training, they're also helping clients on a holistic level when it comes to mental well being, nutrition, fueling up, and even sleep. Sleep is something they focus on.
Yes, yes,
My
yes.
weakest point.
Because I did speak to his wife, and she did have a presentation regarding sleep. So, you know, that's one of the reasons later on in the episode, I definitely have a questions regarding sleep as well. Now, I'm going to put you on the spot, Greta, right now, over here, and I'm going to ask you a very tough question.
Ooh.
If there was a 100-meter race between George and his wife, who do you think would win?
A 100 just running or an OCR? Because if it were OCR, then I would have to choose George for the simple reason that
Okay.
Danielle has been, she's amazing at obstacles too, but they've been focusing more on high rocks.
Uh,
But a 100-meter race running, um, it's hard because I know George is obviously faster,
uh,
but Danielle is amazing too. So I wouldn't put them to race against each other. They have the amazing thing is though they're a power couple. They have actually done high rocks together, mixed doubles.
yes,
So
yes,
they
yes.
really complement each other. Although George is slightly faster, I think running wise, I think he's slightly faster. They really complement each other and communicate well, and they have smashed High Rocks mixed doubles
Yeah,
abroad. They've smashed it. I think it was in Manchester, if I'm not mistaken. But I might. I think it was. They're really good. Um, they're both coaches. They're both into training. It's like that's why I call them a power couple. You
yeah,
know.
absolutely,
And I
100%.
think Daniel was a big, um, played a big role in giving George the courage to move away from the gym where he was working and
Yeah,
start Spirit Level. She was like, you know, when you have that you need that final boost, you need that push, and she was essential.
That is
So
absolutely great. Yeah. And I believe she helped him set up the name as Spirit Level as well, right?
yeah, she helps him
She's into
very,
branding.
yeah,
She's
yeah,
got experience in
a lot.
branding. So
Yes, yes.
that is absolutely great. Now, what I also want to find out is, Greta, I think you're one of the only few people who I know who has also undergone training with two of the greatest of all time, that is Ryan Atkins and Lindsay
Wow.
Webster, at the
Yeah.
Knox workshop, which was at Mill Queen. And I believe that was done by Block 20, right? So, what
Yes.
was that experience like?
It was amazing. I think possibly, I'm not sure if that had happened just a few days after they had come to do a race in the Middle
Yes.
East.
Yes.
Um, and when I got to know about it, I'm like, wow, like Ryan and Lindsay, this is amazing. Something I want to point out is that Ryan and Lindsay, although they are world champions, are two of the most humble people I've ever met.
Yeah.
You know, people think, oh, they must be world champs, so they're not full of themselves. They are aware that they are good athletes, obviously, but they're so humble. They go down to everyone's level. If you say giving them compliments or not the type, like it's okay, it's okay. They're very humble. It was amazing because you are learning from two of the best OCR athletes in the world. So I remember that at that stage when I met them, I think it was the twister. The twister was still an obstacle I was struggling with. And I remember Ryan Atkins taught me a different method. And I've been doing that method since he taught it to me, and it's been working, even when I got it the first time in a race, I'm like, yes, it worked. So they taught me even how to, engage my shoulder blades more, how to engage more on the monkey bars, different methods. They taught us how to do rings that were far away. Something I learned as well from Ryan and Lindsay is, when people do the rope climb and they come down, all they're focusing on is ringing the bell and coming
Yeah.
back down. He's like, what are you going to do as soon as you come down from the rope climb? You're going to start running. So you have to look down. You have to make sure you're going to try and land in such a way that your feet are positioned ready to start again. So you learn all these small tips. Um, and even something they focus on as well is the mental resilience. Their sports psychologist
Yeah.
was with them, and mental strength and mental resilience and mental preparation is so important, especially for them because they obviously have a certain amount of pressure because they are world champs, they're expected to perform. And there are races, they said, which don't turn out as they planned. Lindsay also spoke about her experience, saying that for many years, or for quite a few of her races, she used to fail the spear throw, which is one of the obstacles
Yeah.
at these. And she's like, so she's a human being too, although now she's a world champ and she probably nails the spear throw every time. She's like, we all go through this. So, but their sports psychologist really helps them. And they also focus on the importance of sleep, nutrition, hydration. It's like a jigsaw puzzle. But the incredible thing, the first thing that really impressed me about them is they're so down to earth, so humble, and so willing to help other people. At one point, I did the monkey bars, and Lindsay told me, "Wow, I think you were more engaged than I was. The way you were holding." I'm like, "Wow, Lindsay Webster telling me that." It was like, so they're very open
Humble
to
and down
helping
to earth.
others,
Yeah.
and they are very much. If someone beats them in a competition, they're still going to be the first. To
Yeah.
go and tell them, well done, you deserved it, you placed first. I wasn't, made. So it's amazing. A lot of actually, I've met also other world champions and other elite athletes, and they're so humble. They're so like, we are the same human. Okay, we're the same, two eyes, a nose, a mouth. Obviously, they have more speed and more ability than me, but they're so like not full of themselves or pretentious, which is amazing.
That is absolutely great, isn't it? And also the sports psychologist who you're talking about, I think his name is Graham Roberts.
That's
And
right,
yeah,
Graham. Yeah, I
he has a
couldn't
strong
remember his
background
name.
in
Yeah.
yeah, he has got a strong background in behavioral change as well. And I was just going through his LinkedIn profile. He's also started a new podcast called as Show Up, but that is more focusing on business, not necessarily sports as such. So he's having interviews, with business leaders and quite a lot of other people. Now, Greta, talk us about the different obstacle events or marathon or ultra marathon events that you have done. So have you done like any other events such as Tough Mudder, Desert Warrior Challenge, or Ice Warrior Challenge as well?
So apart from, yeah, I have done the Ice Warrior. I actually
Yeah.
tried it the first time in September, just
Mm.
2 months back. Um, it was just a week after I had done 3 OCR races, so I think I was still recovering. But I won't lie, I much prefer competing in warmer temperatures. The cold affected me a lot. And I was a bit wary because when you're not used to being on like snow and slippery surfaces, I couldn't run down the slopes as fast as I wanted. Everything felt slippery. I didn't mind the obstacles because even when you do an OCR race, there'll be water, there'll be mud, so things are slippery. But the ice warrior, I think what affected me was the cold. So
Yep.
I think if I had to plan to do it again, I would actually go and train in Ski Dubai to get my body used to it because
Yeah.
I'm always training in the heat. So I was struggling. I couldn't perform as well as I wanted to. But I thought, you know what? It's okay. Maybe this race will not turn out to be as well as I planned, but I'm gaining experience and I'm getting stronger. So I took it more as an obstacle resilience grip
Yeah.
session rather than doing it competitively because I realized then that my body wasn't performing. I was also still recovering from 3 races the weekend before. So I said, let me listen to my body. That's something my coach has taught me. You have to listen and adapt, so it's yeah. But I've never tried, no, Desert Warrior. I have never tried. I'd like to try other OCR races if they don't clash with another event I'm doing,
Yeah.
because I discuss all the races with my coach. We sit down and we discuss, and then he's like, "This is too close to your ultra. This is only 5K. Will you benefit if you're training for 50K? No, so out." So we actually select races carefully rather than just doing all the races or just whatever, which I believe is very important because I know people who race every single weekend or you know do 2 races every weekend, and I'm like, okay, first of all, you have to watch out for not getting injured if you overdo it. And also, in my case, because I have specific goals, I want to choose races that will lead me to that goal rather than just doing races that randomly or whatever, yeah,
Yeah.
happens.
And I remember George Crewe once on his Instagram, he also posted that there is a difference between just regular training and when you're competing for an event, because the level of training definitely intensifies. And last week, I believe there were 2 obstacle course races, which was done by OCR Empire as well, which is an
Yes,
outdoor training facility, something which is definitely world class as well. Now, Greta, you've also done a stadium race, or stadium, should I call it, in
yeah.
Paris. What was the experience doing an obstacle course race inside of a stadium?
It was amazing. First of all, when you do a stadium race, it's different because you do have running, but you also have a lot of stairs, lots of stairs. So, training for that meant doing a lot of stair training in Shoka and on the Stairmaster. The obstacles are also slightly different. You also get more functional obstacles like ram burpees, step ups. So some of the obstacles are more like not CrossFit, I would say functional obstacles,
Mhm.
jumping a rope, but
Yeah.
very heavy rope. It was an amazing experience. I had a bit of an incident there, but I still completed the race. So I was going across the monkey bars. My hands were slippery. I slipped off. I
Oh,
fell I fell quite badly. And I remember, I think I hit my back, my head, whatever. I'm used to falling, by the way. um, and I remember the guy who was next to the obstacle. He told me, "Are you okay?" He's like, "I don't think you should continue." I'm like, "No, no, no." I stood up. I was a bit dizzy, but I continued. It was amazing. It was an amazing experience being in. I think it was the Stade de France.
mhm.
It was actually the last time that this they did a stadium race there, and you're running next to the. At one point, you were running inside, and you see all the places where the big footballers have been, and you're like, "Wow, I'm running in Stade de France. I'm running up the stairs. I'm running over the chairs." It was amazing. A different challenge, though. So I recommend anyone who wants to train for a stadium race, you have to get a lot of stair training in. Showcast, Stairmaster, and train a lot of burpees, step ups, skipping rope with heavy rope. So it's different. It's a different experience. They don't do that many of them these days. I think they do a lot in the US, possibly. But in Europe, I think there aren't that many stadium races these days. It is a nice experience. It was not my favorite because it was short. It was 5K. I'm very much an endurance girl, 20K, 25 or longer.
Which moves me to my next question, because you mentioned about ultra events, and you also took part in one of the most toughest ultra OCR event at Morzine.
Yeah.
Now, can you tell our listeners a bit about yourself? Because I remember watching your Instagram profile, and you very specifically mentioned crossing the finish line of the toughest and longest race of my life.
Yeah, I
So
still
what
get
was
goosebumps
your...
when I think about it. Yeah, it was something else. That was a race my coach trained me for 6 months, and as part of the training for it, midway through, so in December, my coach and I decided, that was December 2022, we're going for an OCR Ultra. And I looked at him, I'm like, Coach, it's only what, my 10th or 11th race? Is like, yeah, we're doing it. And then in March 2023, I did a 50-kilometer ultra just to get used to running the distance with the distance. The elevation was only just over 1,000 meters, which I knew was not that much compared to Morzima, where I would have close to 4,000 meter elevation gain. But I remember every weekend I used to go out and do long runs, and my coach sometimes used to give me runs which were just going up and down to get elevation training on uphill, downhill, uphill, downhill. We built up. I think, if I'm not mistaken, around April 2023, I got COVID. I
Oh,
think it was April. And I was like, Coach, this is the wrong time. When I'm in the peak of my training, he's like, no. He's like, the wrong time would be if it happened just before your ultra. I recovered. As soon as I recovered from COVID, I think that same weekend, I went to do a trail race. I came second in age group. I'm like, okay, my body's ready. My body's ready to train again. We continued training. July came along. I think the race was the 1st or 2nd July. Um, and I was there at the start line, and I'm like, I want to see the finish line. I'm going to cross it. In this ultra I did, they have very strict cutoff times. If you don't make it to a particular distance by a particular time, you're out of the race. So there are people who might have reached 45K and literally they don't let them complete, which is horrible. So I made sure I was making all the cutoff times well before the time. Um, it was tough when you have 4,000 meter elevation gain on mud, uneven terrain, in cold weather. We had a lot of swimming, a lot of water, so the
yeah.
body gets cold. You just have to keep going. I think the nice thing in ultras is many times you're never alone. You're always with a group of people. So you're walking up, 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 up. And you know you're not alone, and the person next to you is struggling, and you're encouraging them. Maybe at some point you are struggling, and the person next to you is encouraging you. I remember at one point there was a guy, I think he told me it was his 7th or 8th ultra OCR, and I'm like, wow, you're elite. I'm like, it's my first one. It's like, your first one? You're doing this one? I'm like, yeah. He's like, this is a proper ultra. He's like, this is really tough. I'm like, you can do it. Let's get through. We'll push together. Yeah. Um, but yeah, the thing is that when in an ultra, it's not only the distance and the elevation, it's also the obstacles are much tougher. So if you're getting to you come to the monkey bars, you don't just have, for example, normal monkey bars. They're all level one, up, down, and they're all very far away. If you're getting to the twister, if you're doing a race in the Middle East, many times you step on a box, you can reach it. This one, to reach up to it, you had to jump to it.
Oh, I
Now,
see.
when I got to the twister, I was covered in mud. My shoes were literally mud cakes because it was mud, mud, mud all throughout. I went onto the pole, onto the first, step. And then I told the referee, I'm like, wow, I'm like on my tiptoes, I can't reach. He's like, jump onto it. I'm like, but what if I don't jump well and I don't catch it in the right way? He's like, your choice. It was quite high. In fact, the athlete who was the favorite to win the elite, he actually twisted his ankle and had to stop at some point during the race. So it was a very harsh type of terrain. And I'm like, but what if I fall and twist my ankle or get hurt? He's like, you decide. So there were obstacles I skipped out of safety because I felt they weren't safe at that point, either because of the fatigue or because I knew, like, even on the balance, I tried everything, but with the mud on the feet and with it was very hard to get the slack line done. And
And
um but yeah, crossing the finish line, I remember jumping over the fire. and crying, because when you've been out there for like over 13 hours, but you realize you were going to make it because you realize from the cutoff time, and yet in an ultra it's so unpredictable. You're like, will my body be okay? Have I hydrated enough? Did I take enough fuel? uh, is my body gonna, because sometimes in ultras, the stomach doesn't start digesting food, or I'm like, is my stomach gonna be okay? You hear so many stories, so I didn't want to read the negative stories, because you will hear people like who tell you, no, in an ultra you'll start feeling unwell. Across the finish line, I cried. I remember the medal I got is still my most precious medal, and I remember finishing and thinking, I want to do another one. Um, I had left my mobile in the hotel room, I remember. And then when I went back, obviously, I found lots of messages from my coach and other people. But it's an amazing experience. So I highly recommend that if somebody's into OCR racing and they've done maybe 5, 10, 21 Ks, they should eventually try an ultra. It's not easy. It requires long hours of training, many times training under fatigue. So George used to give me sessions where I'm fatigued and I have to keep pushing. A long run in the morning, about 1 hour later, a tough leg session, fatigue, fatigue, fatigue. And it's like, this is what you have to get used to. You're fatigued and you keep pushing. And it worked. It worked. And I think being a fitness trainer helped me, because I sometimes teach 4, 5, 6 classes a day. So I'm used to pushing. And that, I think, was also good preparation, because I'm used to being on my feet and pushing for long hours. But obviously, I thank my coach because he has helped me achieve things that I never thought I would be able to do. So, yeah.
Now, one thing you mentioned regarding the fire jump, because I remember reading in your Instagram profile, you said that there are no pictures of the fire jump, but
Yeah.
please be assured that you have completed it. But another guy who has done the Ultra OCR at Marzine, Simon Pepper, he actually commented about the buckle. So
Yeah.
can you tell our listeners how different the buckle is in comparison to, let's say, a regular medal?
Yeah, it is different. First of all, even the shape, it's more like oval-like, and it's massive. It's a big medal,
Yeah.
um, which actually looks like a buckle you can wear, yeah, on a belt. It's beautiful though. It's in the when we do Ultra OCR, the Ultra OCR event I did, we had
Mhm.
to wear a purple bib. That is how they would recognize that we are doing ultras and not the 21K. We had to wear like a purple bib, and even the medal is purple, a part of it, and it's so beautiful. You look at it and you think, as Simon told me, he told me there's no picture of your fire jump. He told me, but you definitely did it because you got the buckle.
Yeah.
It's something else. In fact, when I hung it up next to my other medals, it's right there in the middle at the front. Yeah, it's different. It stands out. Like when you do a stadium race, it's also a different type of medal. When you do other races, it's different. When I did the Ice Warrior, it's different.
Yeah.
And each medal has its own story behind it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So when I look at that medal, I think, this is my ultra, and you start remembering this. When I look at the Ice Warrior one, I'm like, wow, this is the one where I thought I was gonna freeze, but I survived it. This is the one where each medal has its own story, but the Ultra OCR has a special meaning for me.
Now, Greta, take us to a toughest part. It could either be, let's say, during the Ultra OCR or any OCR or even running moment. Can you take us to a very specific moment during a race as you found that things were not going right? What is it that was going on in your head and how did you overcome it?
Okay, actually, I think one of the toughest moments I had was when I raced in Salalah in Oman in September, um, which is when I got my first elite podium, which I wasn't expecting, because in that race, for some reason, midway through the race, my body started shutting down, and I was drinking, but I felt like I was dehydrated, I was dizzy, I couldn't focus. But I remember I always tell my coach, I will crawl to the finish line if I have to. There's no way I'm giving up. The only reason I would have to stop in a race is because, hopefully not, I collapse and they take me to the ambulance. Although probably even if the doctor had to stop me, I'd want to continue, yeah? And I remember reaching the rope climb in this OCR race in Oman, and I was actually, they told me, not even walking straight. I was so dizzy. I was actually, walking stuff. And I remember one of one of the athletes who was there telling me, "Come on, Greta, you're almost there. You're almost there." Because it wasn't the last part, but they have given us a lot of obstacles in the final part. And I'm like, oh gosh, okay, I'm still on my feet. Although I'm feeling dizzy, I'm feeling like, and they just pushed through. But I struggled yeah, I did struggle. I won't lie. I actually remember telling myself and telling someone else after, I struggled more in this race than I did in my ultra. Now,
Oh,
in the ultra, you're speaking because something was happening. My body was just not cooperating. So then when I crossed that finish, and I'm like, it's okay, I completed. And then when the day after, I like, oh my gosh, there were some issues in that race. Some people had cheated. And because of that, some the rankings changed. So originally I was fourth, and I'm like, it's okay, fourth elite female today. I'm happy with that because I really struggled. But then apparently there were some issues, and I went up to third place. Yeah, third, and I'm like, wow. I'm like, but why is this happening? And I actually went to speak to the organizer of the race. I'm like, look, I want to know because this is not fair on the on this particular athlete who I think should be on the podium. When they explained what happened and they explained that I should be on the podium, then yes, I accepted. But I am very fair. I'm the type of person, even if you beat me in a race, I'll come and tell you well done. And that's what I wanted. I wasn't just going to go on the podium before I knew exactly what had happened and why the rankings had changed. And then that particular race, I also placed first in age group on the 10K. I had never managed to podium on the 10K distance, and I knew there were many ladies in my age group. But for some reason, because it was the day after the longer race, I was feeling strong and I just pushed. And when I said yes, first, okay, great. I think when you train very hard for something, it is nice to get onto the podium. However, I want all the listeners to understand it's every finisher is a winner. Crossing the finish line and having done your best is what counts. If you get on the podium, amazing, cherry on the cake. If not, you've done your best, you've given your utmost, and that is what most counts. And my coach told me this. He told me, you will continue improving, you continue pushing, you continue training. You might not get podium, it's okay. Have you given your best? Have you given your utmost? Yes. It's like when you least expected, or when you start focusing less on what everyone around you is doing and focusing on doing your own race, then the podiums will start happening. And he was right.
absolutely correct. It is always you versus you. And what I'm really liking is, and it is a bit inspiring, is that the fact that it was your toughest race. And that is the race where you ended up being on the podium. So, it is definitely inspirational. And I'm pretty
Yeah.
much someone down the line will definitely be inspired by that as well. Now, one question what I wanted to ask Greta is regarding the Ultra World Championship. I think that is taking place again next year at the same location in Morzine. So, would you be participating in that as well?
I'm not sure about that yet because I might be planning to do an ultra the month before
I see.
in Andorra.
Mhm.
So I haven't yet decided. I've been to Morzine twice. I've done two distances, the 21 and the 55K. So now I think I'd like to try a different location and experience the challenge of a different location. I might be tempted to do both. We'll see. It's also financially quite expensive, because these ultras are held abroad. You have the
Yeah,
cost of the flights, the accommodation, the race itself. You pay much more when you do an ultra, which I understand because they're giving you the food and it's a more um, challenging race. But yeah, I'm not sure yet. For now, I am gonna focus on building for my next big event, which is a 50-kilometer ultra in Ras Al Khaimah, end of January, organized by Trail Runners DXB. It's gonna be amazing. It's gonna be challenging. Estimated elevation gain 3,300 or 3,500 meters, and it's gonna be on very tough and challenging terrain. So much so that the cutoff time is 16 hours. When you have a cutoff time like that, it means that the terrain is challenging. There's also a 30K option, which is 2,000 meter elevation. But when they put the races up, my coach is like 50K. Yeah, I'm like, yeah, 50K, of course.
I mean,
um,
that's one of the things, with long distances. Once you start doing the long distance, then you always want to prefer doing the long distance, right?
yeah, it becomes addictive, and your body becomes so efficient at performing over long hours. So I still do a lot of speed work and tempo running. My coach makes me do that twice a week. But then the other training I do with my coach is mostly long distance running on trails or on uneven terrain like sand. We do a lot of grip training, obstacle training, upper body strength. We do strength session for the legs to prepare for the mountains. And any other runs I do during the week are usually quite long. So he
Yeah.
will never just give me a 5K run. This morning was actually a short run for me. It was only 8K with 200-meter faster pace at the end. So it was 1K. So I had to take it 1K at a time. The last 200 meters of each 1K had to be faster pace at around tempo pace or almost 5K pace. But for me, 8K is actually a short distance, but he
Oh,
gave me 8K because I had a longer distance yesterday. So because you're training for ultras, you have to get your body used to, even during the week, running 16, 20K. There'll be times when maybe you're going to be out there, you'll be running 40Ks for your long runs. But I think ultras, because your body becomes efficient at performing over a number of hours, for me, the hardest sessions during the week are actually the speed sessions, which are short and fast.
yeah.
Or sometimes you have 2K intervals at a faster pace, because now my body is used to 10K, 20, 30, 40, 50. Hopefully, eventually, we'll build up to a 100-kilometer race as well. So ultras are addictive. OCR races are addictive, you know. The training is very specific. For ultras, you need longer hours. So I always have to plan my week. Okay, I'm teaching 4 classes today. I have a run, I have a strength session. How am I going to fit them in? But as I said, training under fatigue plays a big role in training for ultras. So many times when I'm fatigued, I still go and push to get my, yeah. But it's not something which you can just do. You have to train your body for it. You have to adapt to it.
Yeah, and one question what I wanted to ask is, the fact that you do OCR and marathon and even ultra events. Now in UAE, we have different terrains as well. Now we had hard rock, let's say, and Hatta or Ras Al Khaimah, but at the same time we have complete soft sand, which was in Liva and Al Watba. So from your experience, am I right in saying that in order to train on soft sand, there's a completely different training requirements on road? So what advice do you like to give, or what is your experience and thoughts on that?
Absolutely. First of all, something very important I want to highlight is that you need to have specific shoes. So if you're running on road, I have my running shoes for the road, my running shoes for trails like Shoka and mountain races, and then I have my trail shoes for sand. The difference is that when you're running on sand, if you're running on soft sand and going up very intense dunes, you need to wear gaiters.
Yeah.
So basically, what happens with gaiters is you order them. It's like wearing a sock over your shoe, literally, to prevent sand going in. So they come, when you order them, they come with Velcro. There's a special shop in Satwa where you can go. He will stitch the Velcro around the shoe. You wear your shoe and then you apply the gaiter over the shoe, and they are something else. So even when I run in sand on soft dunes and I literally go up dunes where I have to crawl up, no sand enters the shoe because the gaiters are keeping it out. So that's one thing to consider, having the appropriate shoes for the appropriate terrain. There's no way you're going to go and run in mountains or in Shoka or on trails wearing your normal road running shoes. Also, specific training. I believe a lot in specificity. If I'm training for a mountain race, I'm going to gain more by training in Shoka, Ras Al Khaimah, Korfakan. If I'm training for a desert race, then I have to get lots of mileage done on the sand. If I'm training for a road marathon, then I have to get a lot of mileage done on the road. But it's also good to experiment on different terrains, because if you're a road runner and you go and run on trails or sand, that's going to make you stronger, because the uneven terrain is going to make you stronger for the even terrain, right? In my case, because I train for uneven terrain, if I run on flat roads, it's going to help me improve in speed, which I will also need in some parts of the race which are flat. So I believe training on specific terrain similar to where your race is going to be, but also mixing it up to make your legs stronger and
Yeah,
having the right shoes. Because
absolutely.
I see people not wearing the right shoes and they struggle. So that's
You're
it.
100% right. And I'm not sure if you know of John Albin, who's a multiple time,
Of
you know,
course I
world
do.
champion in obstacle course race and even sky running. And he writes a blog after every race. And one thing he actually mentioned was about the shoes, because the one race that he did in Leva, what he said was that he actually wore the wrong kind of shoes. And he was actually saying that had he changed that shoes, he could have probably smashed that. And I definitely believe him because, he definitely came in third. So definitely strong advice for that.
Yeah, I think he placed third in that race, if I'm
Yeah,
not mistaken. He is one of my inspirations, one of my role models.
yeah,
I think now he's more into ultra running rather than ultra OCRs.
yeah,
I think he's transitioned more, but he's amazing. Any ultra distance runner knows who he is. I read his comments, I read his stories. He's really inspirational. My coach himself is a big fan, and he always mentions him. And like,
yeah.
John Albin does this and this. I'm like, yeah, I know, but he's in a league of his own, he's in a class of his own. Very inspirational. And yes, when you're on those massive dunes in Liwa, you have the wrong shoes. It's not your good day, basically. I remember
Absolutely.
seeing people stopping every few. So I'm running, and they stopped to remove sand because they weren't wearing gaiters,
Yeah,
struggling because you still need a trail shoe to, when you're running in sand. You can't just wear normal running shoes, and struggling because of that. And I'm like, are you okay? Are you okay? I remember handing out electrolytes because I had extra salt sticks because people were thinking, wow, this is hot. We're dehydrated. We're struggling. I think it's the sports community is amazing in UAE. There's so much unity. You're doing a race, even when I compete abroad, and it's like one family. We're all helping each other, pushing each other. You know, um, even when it gets tough, that there'll be someone shouting, "Come on, keep going!" It's amazing. It's amazing. The support is something else.
100% agree on that. Now, you mentioned about doing obstacle course race in other places of the world. You did your first trifecta in your hometown. So, what was that experience like?
I think it was amazing because I remember telling my coach, if I'm going to do my first trifecta, I'm going to do it back home. And she's like, yeah, I totally agree. That was around October 2022.
Mhm.
Malta, it was very hot, extremely hot. Malta is a Mediterranean country. I remember it was extremely hot, but it was a nice experience. I won't lie. I was a bit disappointed because the long race was only 17K. It wasn't even 21K.
Okay.
So the distance was a bit short. They also concentrated the obstacles all at the beginning and at the end. So there was a long part of the race where you're just running, 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 no obstacles for quite a few kilometers. So you really needed to save the energy because I knew that at the end there were about, I think, 10 obstacles at the beginning and 10 at the end. And then um, it was nice. It was nice to race at home. All the athletes, everyone was cheering you on, everyone. But I think they can plan a better route. They didn't do it in, I don't, yeah, they didn't do it this year, but they're planning to do it again in 2024 in Malta. But they didn't do it this year. Unfortunately, they didn't get a lot of support from the government when they did it, and the Italians had to come over to help them. The OCR Italian teams had to come over because Italy is very close. It was nice racing at home, but I still feel because it was their first time, they have a lot they can improve on. But it was nice. You're back home, you're racing, and uh, everyone knows you, and everyone's like calling your name. So yeah, but obviously, being the first race, there's always room for improvement. But having those four medals, completing all three distances, and then the medal for completing all three, it's amazing. And then the
Hopefully,
nice thing was I was also then could spend time with my family because I was
yeah.
in Malta. So there was, yeah,
Hopefully, once you get feedback from athletes, there's always room for improvement.
yeah.
Now, we are in the land of gazelle, and in Abu Dhabi, in a week's time from now, there's World Championship event coming up. Now, two international athletes who will be visiting, let's say, Abu Dhabi or UAE for the first time, what advice do you have for them? What are the things they should keep in mind?
You mean athletes who are actually competing, right? So
Mhm.
first of all, I want to say hats off, respect for these athletes, because I know that athletes like Lindsay, Ryan, I don't know, David Labros from France, to mention just a few, they are not used to training on sand, and then they just come. Even last year, they came and they just smashed the races, because many of these athletes come from very cold countries, so they're
Yeah,
used to training in cold weather, in snow, in ice, and then they come here and their body just adapts to the heat, to the sands, to the terrain. Obviously, for athletes who are world champs like Ryan and Lindsay and Ryan, they obviously know how to tackle the race. It's not their first time. For those who are newer, I recommend pacing the race. Running on sand is not a joke. So you literally have to pace it. It's not like when you're running on the road or on a trail. The pace will be slower. It's okay. You'll pace it. Take your time at the obstacles. Shake it out. Most importantly, enjoy the race. It's a unique race. Running in a desert, overcoming obstacles. The desert in itself is an obstacle, and then you're overcoming obstacles. You are at a world championship. So I think it's important to enjoy it, even when it gets hard, just to think about the positive, about the beautiful aspects, and very important to hydrate, drink lots, and take salt. So I recommend the week before the race, you start increasing your electrolytes, your salt level, drinking more water. And I remember when I do desert races, I like taking my salt sticks. I chew them because they release the salt gradually. I much prefer them to drinking electrolytes. But there are people who like drinking electrolytes. Don't underestimate the desert and the heat. Hydrate, hydrate, hydrate. Wear your gaiters, pace it, and most of all, enjoy it. That's the policy of my coach. Is like you go, you do your best, you smash your race, but most of all, enjoy it and don't get injured. Yeah.
that is definitely valuable advice. And Greta, one trend which I've been observing so far as obstacle course race is concerned, and I'm not sure if you're going to like the question because what I'm noticing is they're focusing a lot on shorter distances. So, they're focusing from initially the super used to be 13 kilometers. Beast had a much longer distance, but they've reduced the distance. Now they also have 3 kilometers. And last week, OCR Empire, they had a shorter distance as well. What are your thoughts about obstacle course race being for a shorter distance? Because I think you like ultra. And
Yeah, yeah.
the
No,
distance.
I believe that it's good to have different distances,
Mm,
because there are athletes who might excel at the shorter distances, athletes who will excel at longer distances. So I think it's good to have a variety. So OCR Empire had two races recently. There was a 400-meter one in Fujairah, if I'm not mistaken, and there
Kabaya.
was a 100-meter race in Dubai. I did not sign up for those because at the moment, as I said, I'm focusing on endurance. And I believe that those type of races require specific training.
Yeah,
You see, at the moment, because I'm training for endurance and ultras, my focus is pacing it, stopping at an obstacle, shaking it out. Are my hands wet? Can I dry them? How am I going to tackle this obstacle? Okay, I think I'm okay to go forward. No, it's too wet. Let me go sideways. So in these fast races, 100-meter and 400-meter OCR races, you can't do that. It's just
correct.
fast, 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 fast. If you can skip 3 rings, you go from the first to the fourth ring. So it's all about speed, agility, which is amazing, which is like ninja almost, yeah. But I believe it requires specific training. So if I had to eventually sign up for those, I would want to train specifically for that. I don't like going for a race thinking, not feeling prepared. I want to have specific training for a race. This is like someone signing up for a 50K. You can't just sign up for a 50K if you already just run 5K, right? So it's the same. But I admire. I was watching the videos and the speed is amazing. And I've spoken to some elite athletes who actually tried the race, and they said, wow, it was hard because we're used to endurance. I'm like,
Correct.
wow, it was hard for you, let alone for me. Yeah.
And Greta, you've done quite a lot of events. You've done obstacle course race, you've done running, you've done endurance events as well. Is there any particular race or event that stands out to you and is extremely memorable? And why is it that makes it special for you?
Okay. No hesitation here. The ultra I did in Morzine in July. is very special. Not only because it was a test of physical and mental resilience, and because I have been building up to it for 6 months. So like crossing the finish line was like the completion of 6 months of work. Um, but it just meant a lot. I don't know. Every step I made was like I was feeling so grateful. I can be in this beautiful environment, walking up these beautiful hills, challenging myself to the limits. I've just felt blessed. I felt grateful. I had the strength. I had the power. Every day I wake up feeling grateful. Thank you, God. I woke up healthy. I'm going to face a new day in front of me. I think you just have to feel grateful for even for the small, these things in life we often take for granted. So when I was in Morzine, I remember one of the athletes doing the race. He only has one leg. He's an ultra athlete from, I'm not sure, Maroc de Spartan. He probably has thousands of followers,
Nice.
and because of his physical condition, they allowed him. I think they gave him a 25-hour cutoff time, so he started
Okay.
the night before. Now imagine that you're racing at night. He had a buddy with him to help him. And when I came next to him and I was struggling, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this guy is doing it with only one leg, two crutches. We were struggling, we were slipping off, and he's pushing through. And when you see people like that who are so inspirational, you're like, wow, what an inspiration. It's something else, you just feel inspired and you feel so grateful that you're healthy and you're strong and you can do these events. And I think it's something we often underestimate, like that we wake up healthy and we can face and confront each new day. So I think that's something that, yeah, these races has taught me. Also, when I overcome an obstacle, I see it as overcoming an obstacle in life. So I think I've gone through a lot in life, and okay, I can overcome this obstacle too. I can ring the bell. Like I've overcome other things in my life, I'll overcome this obstacle. So I think mindset, the mindset plays a big role in these races.
Yeah, and in your case, when you come with obstacles, not only do you overcome it, you smash it as well. Because the toughest race is where you got the podium as well. So what I'm understanding based on what you're saying is whenever there's a problem, you don't only see a solution, but you see an opportunity as well. So, that is absolutely brilliant. Now, Tough Mudder, which is one of the biggest mud races, next year they're having an 8-hour obstacle course race called a Tough Mudder Infinity. And some of the world championships like Ryan Atkins, Lindsay Webster, Chris Loglowski, and Mark Beatrice, they're going to be there. Now, what
Yes.
are your plans on Tough Mudder Infinity, which is an 8-hour obstacle course race in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia?
Yeah, I know that when they had advertised this race, they said it's going to be the biggest like jackpot. They're going to give big prize money. What attracted me to it when I saw it was 8 hours, amazing, another ultra. Um, so basically, my plan for now is to focus on the 50K in Ras Al Khaimah.
Mhm.
2 weeks after the 50K, I'm going to do my high rocks, my first solo high rocks. Um, a few days before high rocks in Dubai, there should be the Gulf Games qualifiers.
Yes.
If I make it to, I'm training with a team at the moment. If I make it to the final team and we qualify to the next stage, then obviously I won't sign up for the 8 hour race because I would have to be fresh because the 8 hour race is just a few days before the Gulf Games second part. If I make it to a final team, but we don't get through the qualification because I know it's going to be mega competitive, then I think if there's still an opportunity, I might sign up for the 8 hour race. Just because for me, it's another ultra, and ultras are my passion. And
Yeah.
I think to be doing it in Alula is going to be amazing. It's my dream to race there. Obviously, I would do it as experience because when you have people like Lindsay Webster and the best of the elite, racing to make it to the top 10 elite is going to be very hard. But it will be a learning opportunity for me. That's important, learning from every race you do and taking it as a build up, building your engine for your next ultra. So every race is a learning experience, even the ones where you feel like, oh my gosh, that was horrible today, my performance wasn't good. Oh goodness, I failed monkey bars. I don't usually fail them. What happened? You know, things like that. You learn. You sit down after a race. You see what went wrong, why it went wrong, and you learn from your strengths and your weaknesses.
That is absolutely correct. And Greta, so far as endurance is concerned, so far as obstacle course race or ultramarathons is concerned, what are your goals or aspirations? And are there any specific races or achievements that you're aiming for?
Yeah, I won't lie. Last weekend there was the ultra in Oman in Himam.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
and I know it's crazy. I know that the 110K is one of the toughest. Even the athletes who did it said it was brutal. Some of the best ones did not complete. And when I was seeing, I'm like, how is this happening? Did not finish. This athlete is one of the strongest ultra. This athlete won the ultra in Jordan, you know, the ex ultra
Yeah.
Jordan. How is he? Um, my dream is to do the 110K in Himam, Oman, someday. So next year, I hope to continue building on the 50Ks, then transition to 75Ks, and then to 100Ks, eventually 100K. My ultimate dream is to do a 100-mile race, 160K, just running. Regarding ultras, I'd like to continue doing ultra OCRs that are 55K. If they do a 75K, I'll try that. If they do a 100K, I'll try that probably. But yeah, I'd like to continue on the word of ultras. My coach, George Crewe, is also a hybrid coach. He trained me.
Yes.
He's training me for high rocks. So yes, I do high rocks, but it's not my main event. It's like plan A is ultras. My second event is high rocks or hybrid events. But I'm happy to continue learning and taking my training for high rocks as building the engine for the ultras, you
Yeah.
know, because it's endurance. And in high rocks, you will enter the pain cave as well. There'll be a moment in the race when you're in pain, where you're struggling, but because you've built an engine and because you've built a strong mindset and a strong body, your endurance will keep pushing you through. I remember seeing in the last High Rocks in Dubai, I was seeing George Crewe at the end. It was his last part. He was overheating. He was at the wall balls. And I'm
Mhm.
like, my gosh, he's not giving up now. No way he's giving up. He was doing High Rocks Pro, which is really heavy. It's the heaviest weight for the man. He was doing so well, but I realized he was struggling. And then I was next to his stepdaughter, Primrose. It was me, and they were like, come on, George, come on, come on, come on. I was like, there's no way we're going to let him give up. And then he was sensible. He was breaking down the wall balls into sections, because when you're fatigued, instead of saying I have to do 100, okay, let me break it down mentally. 10k, 10 at a time. I rest, shake it out, go again, which is the same in the ultra. Okay, I've reached the 30k mark. Okay, now I'm going to aim. Now next stage is going to be 35k, another 5k down. Good. And you asked me about in the ultra, Morzine, one of the obstacles was not a physical obstacle, it was a memory test.
Yeah.
We had to memorize a code, and then they asked us for the code about 20 kilometers after,
Later on, yeah.
when you're just fatigued. And I kept on repeating this code to myself all the time. I'm like, "Oh, so that it was part of that was actually one of the hardest parts, because I kept
Mental test.
mental. Okay, I have to remember the code. And when I remembered it, I'm like, yes, because that meant you don't do the penalty. When you're doing an ultra, when you have a penalty loop, it's obviously tougher, yeah, because it's all in Morzine, all uphill and downhill. And I was remembering, so as I said, the mental part plays a big role, even in the obstacles. Yeah.
And talking about a mental aspect, so far as ultra endurance is concerned, what are your thoughts about Barkley Marathon?
About?
Barkley Marathon, have you heard of Barkley Marathon? So it is you should definitely check out Barkley Marathon. I'll send it to you later on. It is,
Okay. I've
if
heard about the backyards. If it's is it something similar
no,
to a backyard?
no, it is much worse than that. So
Oh,
the thing about Barkley Marathon is it is considered as the toughest ultra endurance running event ever. And the title of that is Where Dreams Come to Die.
oh wow!
You definitely need to check it out. I'm pretty
I'll
much
check
sure
it out.
Netflix, they have a documentary as well. But here's the interesting bit. The entry for that is kind of like a suspense. You would not know how to find out the entry. That is the first task. And once you get entry for it, the entry fee is the car plate license. That's it. There's no monetary charge
Oh,
for the entry place license. So it's a really, really tough race. And,
wow.
uh, roughly around in 2019 or 20, at Al Marmoon, they had a 24-hour last man standing distance. At the last moment, they announced that the winner of that race got an invitation to participate at the Barclay Marathon.
Uh,
And
I
believe it or not, he
yeah.
quit within 3 hours.
Um, I I wanted to do the Marmoom event,
Yeah,
but when I wanted to do it that year, not that the year were you mentioning, was it last year? They were going to do a
yeah,
6,
yeah,
12, or 24 hour. There
yeah.
was a year when they had either postponed it or they hadn't done it. And I really wanted to do the race. So my coach will start with 6 hours and move to 12 and 24.
Mhm.
You also mentioned before you asked me about my goals. My ultimate goal in 4 or 5 years is to do a backyard ultra.
Oh, yeah.
I'd love to do it. And I already decided, my coach, obviously, George, will guide me. But I would also want experience like from Keith Russell, who's one of the best backyard
Yeah.
ultra champions. He's Irish. Um, I already speak to him a lot because he's such an inspiration. And the guy who placed first in the backyard ultra world championships, I'm like, are these machines or are they like human beings? It is my goal. So I think if I start training for 4 years before 5 years, I should be okay. It's not easy. And they all say a lot of it is there because the body is fatigued. It's that
Wow.
keeps it going.
And you know what I would recommend is, there's this thing called as FKT, fastest known time.
Yeah.
So no one is doing that from UAE. So I think you should definitely take an initiative and maybe go FKT at, some distances, maybe in Russell Kema or other places.
Yeah.
Now, Greta, we've talked a lot about a coach, and I do feel that, having a coach is extremely important, especially the level that you're competing in. Now, you're also a group instructor. Now, what are some of the key skills or characteristics that make up for an excellent coach?
Okay, first of all, I believe that, as I was saying before, um, social skills. So if you're a personal trainer, you're all dealing with one person. When you're training a class, you may have 20 people, 30 people. So knowing how to interact with different clients and knowing how to adapt. You will find clients who are shy, clients who come in like, hi, Greta, da, da, da," and clients who are like, hi, good morning, and they just want to do the class. So knowing how to interact with different clients, adapting to the different abilities of the clients. So showing how they can make the exercise harder if they're more advanced, easier if they're beginners, and showing also the intermediate option. Also, very important in coaching is monitoring clients. You're checking that they're doing everything correctly and also giving feedback, constructive feedback where necessary, and giving praise. Because I have trained clients, or I have some regular clients who have improved so much. And sometimes you just go next to them and tell them, you know what, you're looking so strong. I'm so proud. Look at how far you've come. And that boosts them, you know. Also, I believe being a good coach, a very essential skill is planning well, planning beforehand. Um, and the clients love seeing that you have planned everything. Clients don't like it if a coach goes and just says, okay, what are we going to do today? Okay, let's do this, just planning offhand. Even with my coach, George, he plans all my training a week in advance so that we can make any necessary adjustments if we need. And everything he plans for me is according to my goals and my races. So if you see my training, it's completely different from that of another athlete he trains who is training maybe for another event. Yeah. So good planning, um, loving your job, that's the most important thing. Waking up every day thinking, I love my job, I'm going to go and smash my, my classes. Being social, being social with all the clients, adapting to their levels, helping them improve in every way they can, and giving the constructive feedback where necessary. And also, something else very important, you continue studying, doing
Yeah.
courses to continue learning and improving. We never stop learning, it's a lifelong procedure. So that's something I continue doing. Today, in fact, I'm going to do a course with OCR Empire to
Okay.
continue learning more about obstacles and become an obstacle sports coach. Even if I don't actually teach obstacles, I want to continue improving and learning. That's how I'm going to become a better athlete. That's how I'm going to be able to help my clients become better people, you know?
Yeah. And Greta, one question what I wanted to ask is one of my good friends. I mean, I listen to extreme heavy metal, and that's what my first passion
Ooh.
is. Now, he wants to change his career and he wants to be a fitness instructor. For someone who, let's say, who wants to switch their industry and wants to get as a fitness instructor or get into, fitness coaching, what advice would you like to give for them?
Yeah, the fitness, the community of fitness instructors, I mean, the jobs in Dubai at the moment, there are lots of jobs. The amount of gyms and fitness facilities there are increasing. So there are always vacancies and opportunities. I've just been contacted by one of the new big gyms opening in Dubai, but obviously I work for warehouse gym and that is where my passion is. So I will not leave warehouse. But there are opportunities so many. What I suggest is if you want to become a fitness instructor, you obviously start looking at doing the qualifications. Whichever gym you work at, you're going to be asked for your qualifications. So you have to start with the group exercise instructor qualification, then eventually continue doing more specific ones: circuit training, indoor cycling, TRX, corrective exercise specialists, whatever you need to do. Then it's also good to do a course to become a personal trainer. So you have both options: training one-to-one, training groups. You continue studying, you get your qualifications, you train your friends, maybe just gain practice by training your own friends, and then you start applying for jobs. The amount of fitness industries there are in UAE is amazing. Every single day, because I'm also on a group where we help people find jobs, it's amazing. And I'm like, sometimes I wonder, how did they get my contact? Or how did they? There are so many vacancies. It's a beautiful job. um, I love fitness. I breathe. Fitness is my oxygen. It's my life. However, people have to be aware that also, if, for example, you come from a job which is extremely well paid, fitness, you might not get the same salary, but it will give you satisfactions in different ways.
Yeah.
So you have to make sure that when you work in fitness, that your job is going to give you, especially living in Dubai, which is an expensive country. Yeah.
Absolutely. And one thing which you mentioned earlier on as well, that you have to love your job. So when you're working in the fitness industry, the work itself becomes a reward. So, that is very beautifully said at the early part as well. Now, one thing which we discussed, via WhatsApp as well, and that is to do with, eating disorder. And I've noticed that even some of my relatives, they struggle with eating disorder. I mean, you've also shared something similar experience. So can you share your experience on battling, let's say, with eating disorder? I'm pretty much sure a lot of the listeners will benefit by the advice that you have to share with them.
Yeah. In fact, recently I also spoke to an endurance cyclist. I won't obviously mention names, who is struggling with eating disorders. You wouldn't say, many times you see athletes, they look strong, but you wouldn't know there's going through it. Um, so basically, when I started struggling with eating disorders, I was quite young. So I think it was in my secondary school. At secondary school, everyone in class was obsessed with being super skinny. And I took it a bit too far, and I actually ended up having anorexia and eating disorders. From there, I remember my doctor telling me, if you're not going to start eating again, I'm taking you to hospital. And for me,
Yeah.
I don't want to be in hospital. I don't like it. I mean, so basically, I had to learn, but it took me long years to overcome it. Physically, you put on the weight you have to put on. If you're 15 kilos, 16 kilos, you put on the weight. But mentally, you're still fighting it. So every day it's a battle. I then remember when I became a gym addict, when I was about 18 or 19, I became obsessed again. I became obsessed. I had to become skinny, skinny, skinny. So, eating disorders take different forms. In my case, I was deciding not to eat or to undereat. Some people have the problem where then they binge eat and either make themselves sick or else just binge eat, and just, yeah. So the second time it happened, I was eating a little bit, then going to burn it all off, and then not eating. So my weight went down, down, down. And then I remember the third time it happened again was when I started training with a Russian coach. I was still in Malta. He was a very good coach. He helped me achieve amazing times, but he was obsessed with being very, very thin. And when I realized that it was going to lead me back, trigger of eating disorders, I was like, this isn't going to work. So I decided to stop training with him. So then, so as I said, physically, you put on the weight, but mentally, it's the battle is mental. I think now I've reached a stage where, and George Crewe helped me a lot in this, and even Danielle, where I feel strong, I feel healthy, I feel fit, and I love my food. I know that food is my fuel. There's no way I'm going to go and train for 5, 6 hours or do a 13-hour race without having correct fueling. So I enjoy my food. I don't feel bad about eating, which is something I used to go through. I used to feel guilty eating. I used to throw away food, pretend I'm eating, but covered in tissues, throw away the food. I used to love looking at myself and seeing the bones sticking out, which I know a lot of ladies go through. I know eating disorders is a very common reality. So my message is, if you are going through it, I'm happy for people to reach out to me, reach out for help. When I realized that I needed help, I reached out for it. And that is when you overcome it. But the solution is not like what many people say. Like the first time I went through it, they're like, oh, you know what? You're not happy doing this? Stop this, stop this, stop this. Take antidepressants, do this. The solution is sitting down, understanding why you're harming your body, and learning how to love yourself. So, with eating disorders, many times it's women who have a low self esteem or underestimate themselves, or athletes who feel that they're not good enough, they can't perform if they're not skinny. You have to just sit down and say, you're a unique individual. You have to love yourself. And loving yourself means you're going to take care of your body. And to be strong, you need to eat. Eat a healthy diet. Don't see food as your enemy. Food is your friend. You're an athlete. You need fuel. And if you eat more than usual today, it's not the end of the world. But food is your best friend. It takes time, it's more of a physical battle. It's also mental, also physical, because you start thinking, oh no, am I looking big now? Am I looking that? And there are times when I've told George, I think I'm putting on weight. And he's like, stop it. You're looking so lean. He's like, something you don't need to worry about is your weight. It's like, remember, you need the energy. So when if I ever feel I'm falling back into the trap, I go back to George, to Danielle, because she's a sports nutritionist, and they guide me through. But now I've learned how to see food as my friend. And it's very important that people who are going through eating disorders reach out to someone who can help them.
That is absolutely valuable advice. I mean, what people they do is they don't talk about it. They just keep it to themselves. So, definitely reach
Yeah.
out to people. I think that is, if not the most important thing. And I do feel that that is the first step, that once you go out and take that first step, at least on the beginning stages of recovery. So, definitely valuable advice. Now, Greta, I'm in the world of Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies. And I'm not sure if you've heard of Metaverse and Facebook now, which is called as Meta. They have recently released a new headset called as Quest 3, which is, essentially a virtual reality, augmented reality device. Now, the reason why I wanted to ask you this is because one of the top performing app has to do with Zumba classes. And the number of people actually signing up for these events has definitely exceeded the expectation. So what are your thoughts about, fitness in the metaverse? Essentially, you put a virtual reality device
Yeah,
and go
yeah.
ahead and start doing that. Now, we might find it a bit odd because for us it is new, but let's say 2 or 3 decades from now, I think it might be something, a common day activity for people.
I think that the world, yeah, is shifting towards that type of reality. But I still believe nothing beats the face to face, being face to face with clients, or when the client is actually there in front of you and you're delivering a class face to face. So I believe the face to face is always the best. But I know that this is a new reality. And even during COVID, people, fitness instructors, were doing classes online, where the clients are basically seeing the instructor over a screen. I know it's a reality that will continue taking over, but I still hope that people will enjoy coming face to face for classes and actually getting that experience. And I do know that, yeah, this is, I think, what you were mentioning, and even artificial intelligence and all this words, this is what the word I think is shifting towards. But it would be sad if people actually forget how amazing it is to be with other people, socially interact, and actually do face-to-face training, rather than just having the
Yeah,
technological device or a screen. I think nothing beats the social interaction, even the way I can correct a client if I'm next to her or next to him. Even the fact you're with a group, the fact that, I don't know, that's my belief. Obviously, as a fitness instructor, I'm very biased, yeah. But I know that the world is shifting now to this type of reality that you mentioned, so I'm aware. I think eventually they want AI and this type of
yeah,
thing to take over everything. But I'm thinking it would be so scary for me if there isn't a pilot flying a plane, but there's just a machine or the.
yeah.
I wouldn't feel comfortable. I think the human being and this human being skills are very important as well. Yeah. So, but
I
it's amazing.
100
It's amazing technology when you think about it. It's something. Yeah.
I 100% agree. And, me personally, I like to listen to a lot of heavy metal gigs. So I physically like to go there. But my niece, she's a massive fan of K-pop music and BTS. And I asked her if K-pop were to play in Dubai or UAE, would you prefer to go to the physical location or would you prefer to watch it with the VR headset? Surprisingly, she said that she would prefer to watch it with the VR
Yes.
headset. I think that's
Yeah.
what the new generation is,
Yeah.
focusing more on. And Dubai as a city wants to be the world leader in metaverse. Now it's going to be really odd to do, let's say, an ultra endurance event or obstacle course
Oh
race.
my gosh, no way, no way, no way, no way, no. I hope they don't stop the actual races. It will be so different though. Because you want to
Absolutely.
hang on the bars, you want to run, properly run on the actual terrain, hang on the monkey bars, climb up the rope. I think it will be too hard though. I
100.
think in some things, like you mentioned, like Zumba and other things, it's one
Yeah.
thing. But an OCR race, I
You
hope
need
it,
that mud, you
yeah.
need that dirty, you need a bit untidy thing, falling down, getting hurt.
Yeah,
But
that's the fun of it. Yeah, that's the
exactly, yeah.
fun.
Now, we discussed something about hybrid events earlier as well. And lately, what I've noticed is hybrid events are getting a lot of interest. Now, you've definitely done high rocks training as well. And you mentioned about George Crewe and Mrs. Crewe. They also have their own hybrid event. And I do believe you had participated in that as well, right?
Yes, yes.
So,
So,
what was that experience here?
yeah, Spirit Level organized an event called Fusion, which is a hybrid event. It's amazing. They do it. The last one was in November, and I think before that they had done another one in May. So they do it every few months. It requires running. It's like running and functional training. So you have running, you have shoulder to overhead wall balls, deadlifts, kettlebell swings, skiing, rowing, lots of sandbag lunges, sandbag to shoulder, squats, and devil's press. And in between, you have the running. It's amazing. As you were saying, the word of hybrid fitness is really expanding. I think Hyrox played a big role in that.
Yeah.
And George and Danielle, as I said, got a lot of experience racing in Hyrox abroad and doing these hybrid races. And now they have so much to offer. The spirit level classes are all hybrid focused. So if anyone wants to really train well for a hybrid event or for Hyrox, I highly recommend the spirit level classes
Yeah.
because not only are they specifically Hyrox focused, but George and Danielle have the experience and they've done mixed doubles, they've done solo pro, they've done team relays. So they have experienced all the events. Um, Hybrid in itself is amazing. It builds your engine, it builds your stamina. I won't lie, and George knows this because he always teases me. It doesn't give me the same thrill as an OCR event.
Yes.
But I see every session that when I do hybrid training as something that's going to make me stronger and fitter for my OCR.
Correct.
When I'm doing something, I'm like, okay, as soon as I complete the wall balls, it's like I've rung the bell and I've completed an obstacle. So I always try and use OCR, yeah, but hybrid, it's amazing the way it's taking over, the way Hyrox it's taking place in every country of the world. Now it's coming back to Dubai in February, and I am sure the world champions will come over again.
Yeah.
The training for hybrid, if anyone wants to train, lots of running. Hyrox in itself has 8 kilometers of running. So if you don't like running, you have to start working on the running. And then lots of rowing, lots of skiing, burpees, sandbag lunges. You have to train specifically, specificity. If you're going to go for Hyrox thinking, oh, it's okay, I'll just do the race. Even if you do the open race, which is the one with lighter weights, you're in for a big shock. because the way your body is going to feel, especially when you reach station 7, the sandbag lunges for 100 meters, that's where usually, yeah. So you have to train. And I believe when you train for high rocks, you will learn what your strong points are, what your weak points are, and you can build on them. Before I used to hate wall balls. Now I've improved a lot on wall balls. The station I like least is the ski because I have less weight. So to pull the ski down with power, obviously people with more body weight have a bigger advantage. Otherwise, I love the running, the sled push. I love everything. I see everything as a challenge. But the ski, if you had to ask me, which is the station I like least, is the ski. And George knows it, so he's going to help me improve in that. Yeah.
And I think roughly around 6 months ago, High Rocks, they did put up a chart where they looked at the top athletes' performance, and what they noticed is after the ski rig is when the performance actually started to go down.
So the ski is the first station. So that's why, for example, when George says me, if you pace the race,
Yeah,
you start at a pace you can sustain in the running, but don't go full out. If you're going to try going full out on the ski, it's station 1. You have 8 more, 7 more runs, 7 more stations. It's like if you start fast in an ultra, do you think you can maintain that pace? Your
correct.
5K pace for 50K? No way. So it's all about learning a pace that you can sustain for the running, and then at the stations where you're strong, you push extra so you gain time.
Correct.
But it's so much strategy. Every race I do, I plan with George. There's so much strategy, in it. And then obviously when you're fresh at the beginning, you start fast. Many athletes start fast and you see them burning out after a bit. Because obviously you feel boosted. You're there, you started the race, you're fresh. And then you see them burning out, and I'm like, okay, I'm an endurance athlete, so I have to. My focus is pace, pace, pace. And then after the fourth station, if I feel I can push, I'm halfway through. That's when I start pushing more.
That is absolutely valuable
Yeah.
advice. And for our listeners in UAE, you should know that, High Rocks or Spirit Level, they have, I believe, a 10-session program for absolute beginners as well.
Yes.
Yeah. So in the show notes, I'll definitely go ahead and mention that. Now, Greta, we're towards the end of the episode. Now, I have the most important question, something which means a lot to me as well. That is regarding sleep. How important is 8 to 10 hours worth of sleep? And
Oh
what advice would
gosh.
you like to give to our listeners?
Okay, I'm smiling because sleep is always my biggest issue. Because many times I finish work late as a fitness trainer and then have to wake up early the day after for training or to teach more classes. But sleep is very important. If you're training even if you're not training for big events, if you're training for a 5K, sleep is essential. So George always tells me 8 or 9 hours. It's like, I know it's not always possible. When I can, I do it. But as I said, sometimes because of my tight schedule at work, I can't always do it. But sleep is extremely important because it's going to be the restorative part. So the rest and the recovery, when you sleep, you rest, you recover, your body is going to be ready the next day to face your new challenges in training, at work, whatever it is. Also, I feel that if you don't sleep enough, the body is stressed. Yeah, it will affect your performance. But um, some people, because some people also mention the importance of taking an actual rest day, not training. Yeah, I believe it's actually possible to train every day, which may be one of the days being easy, if you have the correct amount of sleep. Because if you're sleeping well, your body is recovering, you're getting that restorative, that the body is recovering, and then the next day you can face it. I believe it's like a jigsaw puzzle. Sleep, proper hydration, proper nutrition, proper training. They fit together, and then you get the whole jigsaw. And then there's the mental well-being, physical well-being, everything fits. It's like a jigsaw puzzle. But yeah, I know that sleep is the weakest link for many athletes, for me included sometimes. So I encourage athletes, if you can get sleep, get sleep. I have some elite athletes, friends in UAE, they are elite, and they actually do this for a living. So sometimes I'm like, okay, how are you? Good. I slept really well. Now I'll train, then I'll sleep again. And then sometimes I mention, I'm like, what are you up to? They're like, oh, I was asleep. I'm like, wow, how I wish. And then no wonder they're always on the podium and smashing it. Because I think when it's your career, you have to pay even
Absolutely,
more
yeah.
attention. But I know it's the weakest thing, so I encourage athletes out there to sleep, 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 eat, drink, 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 sleep, sleep, sleep.
And as we grow older, I think, that's the struggle tends to add up a lot. And now there is a UFC fighter called as, a former UFC fighter called as Habib Nurmagomedov. I'm not sure if you've
Okay,
heard of him.
I've heard
So
the
he
name.
has
I'm
a
not
very,
familiar.
so he's one of the greatest of all time in UFC, but he has a very strict schedule where the people whom he trains, they have to sleep after every training session for 2 hours. So it
Wow,
is like that
wow,
because they have, that's the livelihood, that's the living. They have to shave their hair. So after every training session, they have to sleep for like 2 hours, then another session, two
wow.
hours, 3 hours. So they sleep well more than 10 hours. So I think sleep is definitely critical. And
That's amazing. Yeah, I think also when you reach elite, 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 when it's just your job, professional level, then yes. But
yeah.
everyone should do it actually. So maybe that should be one of my goals for 2024.
Now I have two non-fitness related questions. The first one is your favorite music genre and why?
Okay, I don't actually have a favorite music genre. The reason being that as a fitness trainer, because I'm continually, compiling playlists, creating playlists, I have to listen
Mhm.
to all types and see what for my class. As much as I enjoy R&B or hip hop or pop, I enjoy all types of music. But obviously, if I had to choose my favorite type, it would probably be something like Armin van Buren type of music, yeah, dance, because that is the type of music I will play in the classes to keep the clients pumping and going. But I
Yeah,
enjoy listening to all types of music. Sometimes there are times when I listen to say something a bit more mellow because I need to relax. Sometimes I need to the boom boom boom, the high tech the high
yeah,
intensity music. Sometimes I need to listen maybe to something else. You mentioned heavy metal. I'm not very much into that, but I appreciate that it is a very it has its special touch of its own. So yeah.
yeah. And any gym equipment or gear that you cannot live without.
You mean actually training gear or actually equipment,
Anything,
physical?
anything.
My trail running shoes because they
Oh,
take me many miles. My trail
yeah.
running shoes.
Which
Don't
brand do you use?
I will use Hoka Speed Goat 5
Be good 5. Okay, okay.
for my trails. I used to use Asics for my road running. Now I'm trying to transition to Hoka as well for road running. For my speed work, I have a different types. I have Asics, I have Nike, I have Hoka, but my trail running shoes, don't take them away from me because wherever I'm gonna run, most probably it's gonna be on trails, and I need to run those miles, 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 miles.
That is absolutely beautifully said. And Greta, as we wrap up this episode, is there anything else you'd like to share with the audience? Whether it's about your journey, the sport of OCR, or any upcoming projects you're excited about?
Yeah, just a few points. So, if you're planning to start OCR and you don't know how to do obstacles, don't panic. You will get there. Enjoy the journey. Whatever you do, you do, whether it's running, OCR, any type of sports, enjoy it. Be ready to accept that there'll be races which turn out as planned, races that don't turn out as planned, but every race is a learning experience. And yeah, just don't be scared to take risks in life. I took the risk. I went from not knowing how to do obstacles to doing sport ultra OCRs, and it's worth taking the risk. We live once. If you're fit, you're healthy, you're strong, go for it. Enjoy it. Most of all, enjoy it. Sport is beautiful, so just enjoy it.
That's
Yeah.
absolutely beautifully said, and pretty much sure some of the listeners will definitely be benefited by this episode. Thank you so very much, Greta, for doing.
Thank you so much for the invite. It was a pleasure. Thank you.